Get out here with our lone main heifer and a female that I think offers a lot of good. I love the shape of this one's head. She's really slender about her neck. I like that about her. She's good in the turn to her rib. She's got plenty of power from behind. You know, if you step off and study her from the side, I'd like to see her a little bit softer, more pliable through the lower portion of her rib. Just give her a shot more sweep and depth back into her flank. But again, a really nice single entry. Let's go ahead and give this young lady a big hand.
Champion main was shown by Reagan Delabar of Beatrice. That award sponsored by Ferguson Farms, Steve and Debbie Ferguson of Wymore. Okay, then we'll move on to the maintainer breed. Looks like 2 single entries for this breed. This is the maintainer class, spring yearling, March 1st, 2019 to April 30th of 2019.
Single entry March yearling here to start the maintainer division, and a heifer that, you know, I think is just really honest in terms of what you see. She's not too over conditioned. She's really fresh from that regard. She's elegant and correct in the way she ties her neck and head into the top side of her shoulder. She's got plenty of flexibility and range of motion off both ends of her skeleton. Certainly she's not the most massive that we've seen out here, but a nice single entry here to start the maintainers. Let's go ahead and give this young lady a big round of applause.
Top award winner in that class goes to Addison Koenig of Beatrice. Class is another maintainer class, 2-year-old heifer or cow from September 1st, 2017 to August 31st of 2018. Following this, we'll have the selection of the champion maintainer in reserve and move on to the other breeds, Piedmontese and Polled Hereford.
Get out here with a single entry 2-year-old, I believe she is, and certainly one that's got some kind of freaky pieces. This one is really long, really extended, incredibly long spined. She's got a big set of feet and legs underneath of her. One that, you know, if I'm going to pick on her, she maybe just gets a little bit racy. I'd like to soften her up there through the center portion of her body, see her a little more maternal and pliable down through her lower rib, and certainly one that could probably just use a shot more bulk there through the center portion of her body. But an interesting individual. We'll get her back out here with the other class winner. Let's go ahead and give this young lady a big round of applause.
Your showman in that class is Reagan Delabar of Beatrice. Reagan and Addison will be competing here for the champion, reserve champion, maintainer breeding heifer. Other breeds, please make your way to the ring.
get our two main class winners back out here, and I don't think that we could probably get two more that are more polar opposites in terms of their kind. We've got a moderate heifer that won the first class, a little bit flatter and more maternal in terms of her muscle pattern, and then we've got a really growthy, high-performing one that won the second class that's really a lot more expressive and shapely in terms of her muscle pattern. I think you could really honestly run these either way you'd like, just where you want to lay your preference. I'm going to go with the young lady out of Class 2 for your champion. Young lady out of Class 1 will be your reserve. Let's give them another big hand.
In maintainer breeding beef, that is sponsored by Triple S Cattle, Chad and Amy Schroeder. Addison Koenig was reserve, sponsored by, once again, Triple S Cattle, Chad and Amy Schroeder. Thank you for your support. Change in the program here if you're following along. The one that was listed for other breeds is actually a Piedmontese. So we're going to have 3 classes of these. This is going to be the spring yearling heifer class, March 1st, 2019 to April 30th, 2019.
Nice pair here to start the Piedmontese division, and I think there's a lot of good in both these females. I'm going to go ahead and start the young man's. I think she's just a little bit more neat in the way her neck comes out of her shoulder, a little bit cleaner there through her front end. Still got plenty of muscle. I like the shape of her rib, and I like her skeleton. Heifer in second's got a little extra growth, a little extra maybe bulk in comparison to the one that stands ahead of her. Gets a little bit easier on her top line, a little crestier about her neck, and one that when you set her into motion, still gets out and goes plenty comfortably. A nice pair of heifers here. Let's give both these young people a big round of applause.
Top spring yearling heifer for Piedmontese went to Kellen Schlickman. Second place in that class, Kara Henneberg. At the gate should be Piedmontese cows aged 3 years and older.
get a pair of cows out here in our Piedmontese division, and I'm going to leave them stand as they came in. The cow the young man's got here directly in front of me, I like a lot of things about. She's really, really good maternal in the turn to her rib. She's got plenty of muscle, plenty of dimension, really nice bag underneath of her, and she sounds structured. I like that about her, especially for a mature cow. I think they said she's probably 7 years old or something like that. She's done really, really well for them. The cow in second's one that is really neat and elegant about her head and the shape of her neck. She's pretty level and correct in her top line. She just gets out horsed here. She is not nearly as bold in the turn to her rib, not nearly as dimensional from behind, and she too could probably go a little bit more freely off her hind leg. Nice pair of cows here for these young people. Let's give them a big round of applause.
Receiving a purple in that class, Kelsey Schlickman. Receiving a blue was Kellen Schlickman. In the ring now will be the cow-calf pairs for the Piedmontese breed. Following that, we will have the champion reserve champion Piedmontese before going into the pulled Herefords. After pulled Herefords, we will have Shorthorns.
Calves back out here with the females. I think, again, I'm going to leave them stand as they came in. For me, it probably gets a little bit closer because I really like the heifer calf we've got on the pair in second. But, you know, same goes for the discussion we just had when we had just the cows out here. I think there's so much more in the cow that wins. She's still got a nice calf inside. I think that the heifer calf on the second pair probably offers or helps the pair a lot more than just the cow being out here by herself. But again, please give these two exhibitors a big round of applause.
Kelsey Schlickman had the top cow-calf pair in that class. Kellen Schlickman, also of Beatrice, was in second. We'll now select the champion and reserve Piedmontese. Pulled Hereford should be at the ring.
get our class winners and seconds back out here in our Piedmontese show. And although we didn't have a ton of numbers in this division or this breed, I think there's a lot of quality amongst the individuals out here. I still think it comes down to two for me in the selection of champion reserve. Your champion will be the cow-calf pair directly in front of me. Reserve will be the heifer out of the first class. Let's give those exhibitors a big round of applause.
Champion Piedmontese went to Kelsey Schlickman of Beatrice. Award was sponsored by Crawford Heating and Air. Reserve champion, sponsored by Gage County 4-H Council, went to Kellen Schlickman, also of Beatrice. In the ring now, we have pulled Hereford, Summer Intermediate Yearling, May 1st, 2019 to August 31st, 2019. Nice pair here to start the pulled Hereford division. I think they're a pair of May yearlings. Heifer, I'm going to start, to me, is just a little bit better and more coordinated and comfortable in the way she utilizes her hind leg. I think she's also turned just a shot more robustly and bold in terms of her midrib. One that still balances up from the side. She's probably not as neat or elegant about the shape of her neck and the way it ties into her shoulder. But again, structurally, and thinking about her long term, she's so much more correct in the way she utilizes her hock. Heifer in a second. I like the dark red kind of spot-faced heifer here on the standstill. She is really neat. I love the shape of her head, the way her neck ties into her shoulder. She's really elegant in terms of her front 1/3. On the standstill, she's square. She's correct in terms of her top line. As you see her go there off her hind leg, she doesn't flex her hock. She wants to bow at it a little bit. She's just a little bit more unstable than the heifer that beats her. But a nice pair there. Let's go ahead and give those two young people a big round of applause. Top heifer in that class went to Haley Spilker of DeWitt. Second place, Jacob Kapke of Claytonia. Entering the class now, spring yearling heifers of the pulled Herefords. March 1st, 2019 to April 30th, 2019. Following this, Haley and Jacob will return to compete for the overall pulled Hereford. After that, we'll go to the Shorthorn breed, Shorthorn Plus, and then Simmental.
Again, another nice pair of heifers here in our Bold Hereford show. The heifer I really like this heifer and a lot of things about her. Starter at the surface, I think she's good-footed, she's sound and structured. From there, I think she's really good in the turn to her rib. She's got a nice sweep to her underline. Where I think she's got the most advantage is in her front 1/3. The shape of her neck, how clean and attractive she is up there, and the way she's designed in her shoulder. She's more relaxed in the angle of her shoulder. She reaches better out of her front end, is more comfortable on the motion there going out of her front, the front third of her body. Heifer in second, really good cow prospect. That's just a good, functional, broody kind of female. In relation to the one that stands ahead of her, she's a little bit more jammed up and coarse there ahead of her shoulder. And I just like to lay her back and on the angle of her shoulder. I see her kind of neck kind of come out higher out of the top side of it and allow her to reach further out of her front end. But again, a nice pair of females here in this class. Let's give those two young people a big round of applause.
Congratulations to the spring yearling heifer, top purple in that class, Caden Kapke. There's bragging rights over his brother, second place of Dustin Kapke. In the ring right now will be for the champion pulled Hereford. Out of class number 1, the top animal was Haley Spooker. Second was Jacob Kapke. Shorthorns should be at the rein.
get our class winners and seconds back out here to select your champion reserve, pulled Hereford. And again, I think we've got 4 really nice females. There's a lot of good in all of them. They're sound, they're functional, they're the right kind of cattle that should go and make productive cows. So with that said, I think there's one that just kind of wins the division or the breed fairly easily, and then a nice heifer to follow her up in reserve. The young man out of class 2 will be your champion. The young lady out of class 1 will be your reserve. Let's give them a big round of applause.
Top Hereford, congratulations. Champion, Caden Kapke of Claytonia. Reserve champion, Haley Spilker of DeWitt. Thank our sponsors of the Hereford Awards. The champion pulled Hereford, sponsored by Jay and Terry Naveen of Adams. Reserve champion pulled Hereford, sponsored by Crawford Heating and Air. In the ring now is our first of 2 classes for Shorthorns. This is the fall heifer class. September 1st, 2019 to December 31st, 2019. Pair of October heifers here to start the Shorthorn breed, and I think we've got, again, a nice pair of females. The young man's heifer that's fighting him something fierce is going to go ahead and win the class. And again, I think she's just got so much more in terms of natural turn to her rib. She's stouter and more impressive from behind. She's one that is tough to get a look at her, and when she doesn't want to cooperate and just walk at a normal pace, but her angles read right. You like that about her. The heifer in second is probably a little bit more feminine in the shape of her head. She's thinner about the shape of her neck, one that balances up in terms of the way her underline sits in her today. I'd like to lay her back in the angle of her shoulders, see her tie her neck in just a hair better, and then she's a little bit more uncoordinated off for hind two, but a nice pair here to start the Shorthorns. Let's give those 2 young people a big round of applause. Heifer class of Shorthorns. First purple, congratulations, went to Shelton Crawford. Second place, Boston Crawford. In the ring, junior yearling heifer, January 1st, 2019 to February 29th, 2019. After this class, Boston and Shelton's animals from the previous class will come in to compete for the overall Shorthorn, and we'll move to the Shorthorn Plus breed.
single entry yearling heifer here to round out our shorthorn show, and a female I think that offers plenty of good. She's really sound structured. I like the way she balances up. She's really maternal in terms of her rib design. She's attractive in the way her neck comes out of her shoulder, and I like that about her. Certainly one that within this particular age bracket could use some extra competition. We'll get her back out here with the Falls and Picky Champion Reserve. Let's give this young man one more big round of applause.
Shelton Crawford received a purple in that class. Now we'll have the selection for the overall shorthorn. At the ring should be shorthorn plus, followed by scimitars.
Get our three shorthorn heifers back out here to select your champion reserve, and I think it just comes together pretty logically. About only one way you can do it here amongst your two class winners. For me, the heifer out of class 2 will be your champion. Heifer out of the fall class, there will be your reserve. Again, let's give these shorthorn exhibitors one more big hand.
In the shorthorn breed, congratulations, both awards for champion reserve, Shelton Crawford of Beatrice. The champion shorthorn, sponsored by Landmark, the reserve champion shorthorn breeding heifer, Roar's Machinery Inc., Mark Bathel and Dean Roar. At the ring should be shorthorn plus, 2 classes of these. Then we'll have the champion and reserve champion selection. And we'll go into the scimitars.
Man's brought us another single entry October heifer here in the Shorthorn Plus division, and I think a really nice heifer that's got plenty of future ahead of her. She's really good in the shape of her rib. I like how bold she is in her forerib. I think she sounds structured and balances up really well. Be interesting to see her back out here after we get through the next class, but let's give him a big round of applause.
Receiving a purple for the fall heifer class, Boston Crawford. gate will be summer or intermediate yearlings, May 1st, 2019 to August 31st, 2019.
Our summer division of the Shorthorn Plus show, I think we have a heifer in the roan that just kind of runs away with this class. She is so good in terms of her build. I love how that one's constructed from the surface up. She's really good in the shape of her foot, the stoutness of her bone work. She's good enough in the turn to her rib. I like the way she balances up. She is so attractive there through her front 1/3. Love the shape of her head and the way her neck ties into the top side of her shoulder. She's certainly not the stoutest heifer we've seen today or the most massive, but she's incredibly complete. Heifer we've gotten second, I think this one probably does have a shot more natural dimension right there at the top side of her rib, coming out of her spine. She probably maybe is just a little more stout and expressive from behind, but that I think works to her disadvantage. She's a little more jammed up in her kind, a little coarser in terms of her build, not quite as sound or doesn't balance up as well as the heifer that wins, but a nice pair here. Let's give these two young ladies a big round of applause.
In that previous class, congratulations to Abby Volish of DeWitt for the top purple. Second place was Ella Crawford. Those two are combined with the fall heifer from the first Shorthorn Plus class of Boston Crawford. This is competing for the champion reserve champion Shorthorn Plus. Final breed of the day will be Simmentals. If you could have those up at the ring. Your champion Shorthorn Plus breeding heifer that we're going to award here shortly is sponsored by Blue Valley Door Company, Inc. Reserve champion, sponsored by Crawford Heating and Air.
Get our 3 Shorthorn Plus heifers back out here to get you a champion reserve. And again, I think there's functionality and good in these 3 females, but with that said, there's one that just kind of runs away with this breed. A young lady out of the second class will be your champion. The second place heifer of that same class will be a reserve. Let's give those two young ladies a big round of applause.
Champion Shorthorn Plus, shown by Abby Volish of DeWitt. Reserve champion Ella Crawford of Beatrice. Entering in the ring will be a single entry. This is a spring heifer from January 1st of 2020 to February 28th, 2020. We'll have 3 more Simmental classes after this, or they will come back to compete for the champion, reserve champion Simmental.
Single entry January calf here to start the Simmental show, and a heifer that I like a lot of things about. She's really good and correct in the way her ribs designed. You can tell that from this early age. She's really sound. I love her balance. She's really long and extended there ahead of her shoulder, and still it ties in really well. I think that's a heifer that's got a world of future ahead of her. It'll be interesting to get her back out here with the older heifers, but let's give this young lady a big round of applause.
Congratulations to Carly Rains, receiving a purple with the spring heifer. Entering the ring now be the second class of Simmentals. This is going to be spring yearlings, March 1st, 2019 to April 30th, 2019. This class will be followed up by junior yearlings.
get into a trio of April yearlings out here in our Simmental show, and I think the heifer that wins it just kind of the complete one of the group. She's really good. Anywhere you study her, there's not a bad angle on her. She's good and correct in the turn to her rib. She's got plenty of muscle. She's not the stoutest one, but I think she balances, she proportions, she's attractive there through her front 1/3, and she's sound enough. Heifer we've gotten second, I think, is really good in the shape of her neck, how thin it is. I like that about her. She's really level and correct down her top line. One that, in relation to the heifer that beats her, is a little bit flatter in terms of her forerib. When you get in behind her, she maybe wants to hawk in just a little bit as well. Then the heifer that rounds out the class is easily the stoutest one that we've got out here in the ring, but I think that works to her disadvantage. She gets a little bit more upright in the angle of her shoulder, doesn't want to utilize her hip and hind leg, and accordingly wants to get a little bit higher in the center of her back when you set her into motion. I'd just like to free that one's skeleton up off of both ends, and she could probably rise a little bit higher in this class. But a nice trio. Let's give those young people a big round of applause.
Top purple spring yearling class goes to Carly Rains. Second, Natalie Dean. Third is Hayden Warner. In the ring now, junior yearlings, January 1st, 2019 to February 29th, 2019. After this class, we'll have the top senior yearling, and we'll need the the first and second places of all the Simmental classes to come compete for the overall Simmental. Following that, we will have the grand and reserves from each of the breeds to come back and compete for the overall champion breeding animal here at the fair. For those of you showing stocker feeders, that program has been posted on the board. We will start that show shortly after the conclusion of this one. Anticipated maybe in that 2:45 range. Go ahead and take a look at the board, and we'll try to get that one started as soon as we can as well. The junior yearling class. Looks like we might need Addison Brandt yet.
apologize for taking just a little longer here on this class, and in particular the top three. I think that there's a lot of good in those three heifers, and there's a lot of variation and give and take, and you just got to decide where you want to lay your emphasis. And to me, the heifer that I start either goes first or third. She's one that I think combines what the other two have, and you just got to decide if she's got enough oomph to get around them, and I think today that she does. It's a heifer that when she's in motion, I really like her structure. She's sound. She's got a ton of reach and flexibility. I think she's really elegant in the shape of her head and neck and the way it ties into her shoulder. She's not the stoutest one. She's not the most powerful, and she's not the most massive, and I'll be the first to admit that. And if I was going to change her, I'd just soften her up and give her a little more sweep to her rib. But I think that's just kind of the combination heifer, and just where I find the most logical place to start, I guess. The heifer we've got here in second that was late getting to the ring, this is a big burly brood cow in the making. That's a stout-featured, stout-footed one that's got a ton of mass, ton of dimension. With that, she gets a little bit plainer there ahead of her shoulder. She's got some extra chest pushing out down low. I think she gets a little bit more coarse about and open about her shoulder as well, and gets a little bit more cresty at the top side of her neck. Doesn't just tie in perfectly there into her shoulder. Wants to break a hair right there behind her shoulder as well. But just from a brood cow fundamental standpoint, that female's got a lot of good. I just want to pick on her a little bit in some areas and make her a little bit more elegant and attractive. And I think she could have won this class really handily. And that's where I struggled with the heifer here in third as well. When she gets her stopped and pulled together, that one is incredible from the side. I love that one's profile. She's so good in terms of her neck, her shoulder, the way they tie together. She has got an incredible sweep to her lower rib. I think that heifer on the standstill from the side is one of my favorites out here. You know, it's when you get up on top of her, she's not turned nearly as bold at the top side of her rib, and set her into motion. She gets just a little bit uncomfortable and awkward there off that rear pastern. Again, an interesting top trio of heifers that have a lot of variation, and like I said, take your pick and do what you want to do. I wouldn't argue with you a bit. Heifer here in fourth is one that I think gets around the heifer in fifth just based off of comfort when you set her into motion. And then it's a heifer in her own right that is going to go make a good productive cow. She's maternal and bold in her rib. She's got plenty of power in relation to the other three, that stood ahead of her. She's a little bit more moderate in package. She's a little more open about her shoulder and a little bit frailer in terms of her feature, but just a nice, fundamentally right kind of female for him. Heifer that rounds out the class is one that on the standstill is really, really wicked. That is a massive, incredibly bold rib female that's got a ton of muscle and power. You can see there as she goes, the longer she's out here, she's getting more and more uncomfortable off of both ends of her skeleton. I'd like to freshen her up just a little bit and take that crest out of the top side of her neck as well. And I just need to fix her structurally to slide her up any higher, and she could have done that very easily. But a nice class of heifers there. Let's give those young people a big round of applause.
Results of the junior yearling class. First place, Seth Dean. Second place, Addison Brandt. Third, Rachel Beeler. Fourth is Grant Lemke. And fifth, Elsie Warner. In the ring now is the senior yearling, 9-1 of 2018 to December 31st, 2018.